Michael, come check this out, mate.
What do you got?
Look at this. The percentage of homeowners aged 25 years or over who are carrying a mortgage debt climbed from 42% to 56% between 1990 and 2013. Oh, check, but this, among those aged 55 to 64 years, this incidence has more than tripled from 14% to 44%.
That's scary, isn't it?
Which means more Aussies are retiring with a huge amount of debt and can't retire comfortably. Hey everybody, Joe Durrani from Ample Property Solutions. Now from what you heard, you probably got a bit of a shock to the system like I did. Now there are a number of reasons, a number of factors as to why this is occurring and why this is actually happening. But what I like to call it and frame it is the circle of life. So I'll give you a quick example. So to give you the circle of life quite simply, let's just have a look at it as an example from you being in the ages of 25 to say 30. Now, in actual fact, a lot of people are starting later in life because they're actually fearful about the debt itself, but let's just take this into account. So what do we normally typically start off with? We start off with an apartment or something that we can afford to get into the market, to buy into the market. And typically speaking, you start off with an apartment. So whether you are single or a couple, it doesn't really matter. The circle of life still applies. So we're 25, we enter into an apartment, a mortgage of 30 years. What typically happens is we spend about 2 to 5 years in this apartment, then we need to upgrade or get into a house or a townhouse because either one, you have got married, or two, you're already married and you're starting to have a family, starting to have kids. So what happens is you stay here for 5 years, for argument's sake, you sell the apartment off and you buy yourself a townhouse or a house. Either way, it's the same thing, house or townhouse. Okay, now, what have we done? We've spent 5 years, so now we're in our 30s. And we entered another 30-year mortgage. Okay, now, bear with me because we are going to get to obviously a point in this story or in this circle of life. What happens now? You start to grow your family. You have another kid, so you need a bigger house, but more importantly, you're seeing your friends, your family, and others build their dream home. So you want to keep up with the Joneses. Now, if you want to build your dream home, as I do as well, more than welcome to. Of course you can, but you can do it more strategically. Now, but what happens typically is they sell the house that they've been in for, again, roughly 5 years, and they build their monster dream family home. Okay, so now we're into our 35s, and you can even say a little bit more, maybe even 40s. Okay, because they're between 5 to say 10 or 7 years, thereabouts. So what happens is now we're entering again another 30-year mortgage. How long have we been now? So we've been 5, say around 10 to 12 years, for argument's sake, so far. 10 to 12 years. But what are we doing is that we're actually selling off the houses, which is probably the worst thing you can do in this circle of life. And this is where people get caught in the circle of life rat race, so to speak. What happens now is they get to their retirement age, let's just say for argument's sake here, they're 60 or 65 and they want to retire. However, they've still got maybe 20 years, so maybe 10 years left on their mortgage. This is what people get caught into. This is what we don't want people to do, because if they'd done it better or a smarter way, they could have kept these properties and have their family home paid off. And I'm not going to get into too much detail about that now, but actually I will point out that Australia has the biggest untapped, untouched equity in the per capita in the world. So it's really important that you see how this cycle happens. Now what happens is we've spent 10, 12 years plus a 20 years, we've spent now 25 years or more in a mortgage. However, when we come back, see what happens here is we have to sell this because the kids have grown up, they've left the house, and we want to downsize because we can't afford to hold on to this property on our own, and the house is too big. Wife and husband do not want to spend all their time cleaning and running around up and down the stairs. It just doesn't work. So what do? They sell the house, they take whatever equity they can, they pay off the debt, which is good, so pay off debt, debt, then they've got to go and buy something outright. Listen to me, they've got to go buy something outright so that they can sustain and maintain their lifestyles throughout retirement, and so they can live off whatever savings and or superannuation that they've got left. So what do you think happens though? Let's just say they're left with, I'm not too sure. It could vary anywhere from whether it's 10 years left on a mortgage, you can work it out whether it's 20%, 30%, 10% left in the mortgage, you pay that off, so you're left with whatever's left. With that money, you come back to buy a small apartment or a small townhouse or a house outside of where you originally live or where you lived for 30, 40 years, and you typically would be paying the same amount of money, because you've got to think about it, how much is this now worth 25, 30 years down the track, 40 years down the track? And that's where people get unstuck. You need savings, you need to build a nest egg. So I can share with you, with not just myself, but with my team as well, how you can keep these properties, buy and build your dream home, your family home, and keep that as well so you can then give it to your kids. Obviously, that's what we're about, leaving some sort of legacy for your family. We can show you how to pay this down a lot quicker, having these properties. Yes, you're probably freaking out. How much debt are you talking about? There is something called good debt and bad debt. Your family home is, sorry to say for some might take it a bit differently, but it is actually a liability. It's bad debt until you pay it off. However, we can show you how to pay this off quicker in less than 10 years. And still have these properties running for you and growing for you in equity, because let's face it, this property is not going to stay the same. It's going to continue to rise. This also is going to continue to rise, as well as the rental income. And this is where the secret is. I just mentioned to you that Australia has the biggest and the largest untapped equity per capita around the globe. Why don't we utilize that properly? Use experts like ourselves to help you take control of your life and not live in that circle of life in the rat race. For more information or to find out how all of this can be possible for you, please contact my team at 1300-590-594, or alternatively, you can email us directly at info@amplepropertysolutions.com.au. Thank you for watching. Joe Durrani, Ample Property Solutions.